Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are putting some major gym myths to the test. We're diving into the definitive, absolutely evidence-based guide to protein consumption, drawing straight from the International Society of Sports Nutrition, or the ISSN. They've put together a highly comprehensive position stand on protein and exercise, and if you're looking for the ultimate protein playbook backed by rigorous science, well, you are exactly in the right place. So, let's jump right into it.
Let's be totally honest for a second. We've all been there, right? You finish a brutal, grueling workout, and then you're sprinting to your gym bag in an absolute panic, desperate to chug a protein shake before that magical 30-minute anabolic window slams shut. It is a classic, completely stress-inducing myth that has haunted athletes for decades. But are we actually missing the window, or are we just missing the point of how our bodies really build muscle?
To really understand the rules here, we first need to define our ultimate biological goal. It's something called muscle protein synthesis, or MPS for short. Basically, this is the physiological process of repairing and building new skeletal muscle tissue using the amino acids you get from your diet. Simply put, if you want to grow, or honestly, even just recover properly from a session, you absolutely have to keep your body in a state where muscle protein synthesis is outpacing muscle breakdown.
All right, moving on to Section 1, the daily protein target.
So what's the ISSN's golden rule? For most exercising individuals, you want to be consuming between 1.4 and 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight every single day. You know that old recommended daily allowance of 0.8 grams? Yeah, the research clearly shows that is just not going to cut it for the demands of a training athlete. Hitting this 1.4 to 2.0 target is quite literally your absolute baseline for creating that anabolic environment we want. Now, there is a totally fascinating exception to this rule. If you are actively cutting calories to lose body fat, your protein needs actually go up, like way up. The source data shows that athletes in a caloric deficit might actually need to push their intake upwards of 3 grams per kilogram of body weight daily. It sounds like a ton, but this massive increase is exactly what preserves your hard-earned fat-free mass, your muscle, while you're successfully stripping away the fat. Let's get a bit more specific in Section 2, sizing your servings.
Listen, you really don't want to just eat all your daily protein in one giant sitting. The ideal per-serving target? It's right between 20 and 40 grams of high-quality protein. That is the absolute sweet spot to optimally trigger the muscle protein synthesis we defined earlier. Whether you're a younger athlete or a bit older, hitting somewhere in this 20 to 40 gram range per meal is exactly what turns the key in the ignition for your muscle building process.
So what happens if you just try to eat a massive 80-gram protein steak all at once? Well, besides a serious food coma and the meat sweats, you actually hit what scientists call the muscle-full phenomenon. Basically, your rates of protein synthesis peak and then they completely plateau. Even if you have tons of amino acids floating around in your blood from that giant meal, your muscle essentially says, hey, I'm full, I can't build any faster right now. That's why massive single meals just aren't efficiently utilized for building muscle and why portioning is so crucial.
Which brings us right into Section 3, the science of timing.
If massive meals don't work efficiently, how exactly are we supposed to intelligently space out those 20 to 40 gram servings to keep our bodies anabolic? Let's totally clear up the anxiety around meal timing once and for all. Instead of having, say, a tiny breakfast, a medium lunch, and then heavily backloading all your protein at dinner, what you really want is a balanced pacing strategy. You want to continually trigger that muscle protein synthesis throughout the entire course of your day.
The data reveals a highly practical timeline for this. It goes something like this. Start with breakfast, then wait about 3 to 4 hours for your next meal, then another 3 to 4 hours to your post-workout meal, and finally a pre-sleep feeding. This 3 to 4 hour rhythm is like magic. It ensures your body remains in a favorable, positive net protein balance all day long. Honestly, it's just the most effective way to keep the engine running smoothly without hitting that muscle-full roadblock.
And hey, remember that 30-minute panic myth we discussed right at the start? You can officially relax. The science reveals that resistance training actually sensitizes your muscles to protein for at least a full 24 hours. So yes, getting protein around your workout is definitely a smart move, but the anabolic window is basically wide open for an entire day. It's your total daily intake and your 3 to 4 hour pacing that truly dictate your results, not rushing to the locker room for a frantic quick shake.
Now let's talk about the food itself in Section 4, Quality and Sources.
So far, we've got the numbers and the timing down, but we really need to focus on what's actually on your plate, because not all protein is created equal. It really comes down to essential amino acids, and specifically something known as the leucine trigger.
To maximize protein synthesis, you need between 700 and 3,000 milligrams of the amino acid leucine per meal. Whey protein actually completely leads the pack here with 11% leucine and rapid digestion. Casein, egg, and meat are also top-tier choices for hitting that threshold. Plant sources like soy have a slightly lower relative leucine content, meaning you might just need to consume a slightly larger overall portion to hit that crucial trigger.
Let's compare the two heavyweights of dairy protein side by side for a second. Whey versus casein. Whey protein digests rapidly. It causes a fast, intense spike of amino acids in your blood, which is absolutely perfect for an immediate post-workout recovery boost. Casein, on the other hand, coagulates in the gut and digests very, very slowly. This provides a steady, prolonged release of amino acids. They both have distinct, really powerful physiological advantages depending entirely on when you choose to take them.
And you know that slow digestion of casein leads us to one of the most fascinating strategies in the entire ISSN playbook, the pre-sleep hack. The research shows that consuming 30 to 40 grams of casein protein about 30 minutes before bed drastically boosts your overnight muscle repair. And get this, it even increases your resting metabolic rate the next morning. And the very best part? It does all of this without increasing your body fat. You are literally building muscle and recovering while you sleep.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, the safety question.
We just can't do a full explainer on protein science without tackling the incredibly persistent, loud, yet entirely unfounded myth that eating a high-protein diet is somehow dangerous for your internal organs. The source material addresses this unequivocally. They state there is literally no published evidence that elevated intakes of protein exert any negative impact on kidney function in athletes or the general population. In fact, clinical data tracking healthy individuals consuming incredibly high amounts, we're talking up to 3.3 grams per kilo over an entire year, showed absolutely zero harm to liver or kidney function. If you are a healthy, exercising individual, the science says your organs are perfectly safe processing these levels. So, let's bring all of this heavy science together into a highly practical, actionable mental checklist you can take right to the grocery store. 1. Target 1.4 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight every single day. 2. Aim for 20 to 40 grams per meal. 3. Space those meals out about 3 to 4 hours apart. 4. Prioritize those high leucine sources like dairy, meat, and eggs. And 5. Seriously consider adding that 30 to 40 gram pre-sleep casein feeding to your routine.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for the day. Are you actually eating enough to build muscle, or are you just lifting on an empty tank? Now that you have the ultimate science-backed playbook from the ISSN, I really encourage you to calculate your own body weight targets right now. Apply this pacing strategy to your very next workout and start giving your body exactly what it needs to truly grow. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.